Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus here with an installment of The Legends of Lockdown, and a review of Transformers Animated Blazing Lockdown. So how do you take a giant spiky death muscle car and make it more muscle and spiky and death? You add flames! Unfortunately, that means that some of the paint apps in the alt mode were lost, and if I were a gambling man, and by that I mean a dude who remembered to do it at any time before this review, I would dot in these spikes with some gold paint, because I think that would make it pop some more. But it's not really that important, and I can dig him being just a big black muscle car with black spikes, because the flames, man, I like the flames a lot. Just imagine those flames and some dotted-in gold spikes, especially when you look at these silver-dotted spikes of the original, and I think you can see where I'm going with this. Blazing Lockdown lacks the hook of his predecessor, and because of that, has a gap in the front of the car. Unfortunately, the only way to fill that gap is to stick a chainsaw inside, making him a giant flame-decoed, spiky death muscle car with a chainsaw sticking out of the front. And I don't know if it works. It's almost crazy enough to be awesome, but then the chainsaw is really low to the ground and really thin, and I think that if you tried slicing tires with it, the tires would kind of drive up on top of the chainsaw, so I'm afraid this just doesn't work. Blur couldn't make it work, Lockdown couldn't make it work. Sticking chainsaws to the front of cars, ladies and gentlemen, that is a science we are still trying to perfect to this day! But let's go to my favorite science, which is transforming robots. Blazing Lockdown is a golden flaming mean mother. The robot mode is where this repaint kind of won me over, mostly for the angry bronzed face of robot Lance Henriksen. It works for me. It just works for me. I can't really explain why. It's kind of like true love at first sight. You know, you can't really explain what happened, but next thing you know, you're head over heels. I also like the flame effect they got across down here with his cuffs and thighs kind of working in tandem to get across a very blazing look. And overall, the deco works for me. It's, again, symmetrical. You don't get your desired show-accurate lockdown asymmetry. You'll have to wait for Transformers Animated Rock Down for that. And also, like any release of Lockdown, from the factory, his wrists will only fold out to about there. You have to do some scraping, trimming, and modifying to get them to come out to there. Now, hanging off his butt is the usual Lockdown weapon arm. And like the original Lockdown, you can plug this thing in place, and boom, look, it's an EMP. I bet you could put that on a Ratchet toy. Now, he doesn't have a hook. That's because he comes with the other weapon from the show, Lockdown's hand flattened out into a chainsaw. And it is that effect. It's supposed to look like his hand flattened out into a chainsaw. I think it works. A lot of folks want to try plugging this onto the original Lockdown, and I think it looks better on Blazing Lockdown. It's like the original Lockdown, you know, he uses a hook, it's a bit more precise, it's a bit more subdued, but when he goes blazing, when Lance Henriksen gets golden bronze flaming mad, he uses a chainsaw, and I really like the way that this turns out, especially with the EMP blaster up here just flanking it. His posability is Lockdown's posability. Whether or not that works for you, that's your choice. I think he does enough for me. Like, a lot of folks wish Lockdown did more with his legs, but I think it's fine. This is a case where, again, the movie Decepticon symbol, it's almost lost in all the bronze, and that's something that I guess, kinda works for me, but I wouldn't mind seeing how that looked with purple. And as you can see in the reflection there, there's also a big-ass thumbprint in the paint. That should annoy me, but he's Blazing Lockdown. I'm sure that that's like the scarring that caused him to get mad enough to get all blazing. That in the paint chip there. Compared to his original paint deco, you can see that Blazing Lockdown overall just looks more fiery and almost a little bit more organic, a little more polished too. And I like how he turns out. I mean, like, he doesn't have the whole thing of, hey, look, there's a red kneecap and some extra gray, check out the asymmetry. The sculpting is still there, but it's kind of well hidden by the gold paint, and I don't mind that. I think it gets across a well enough effect of being a very different deco. And if you do want to see the chainsaw on the arm of Alpha Lockdown, it's okay. I mean, it's not gray, so it doesn't fit in perfectly. I'm sure that if you wanted to, you could get this chainsaw repainted silver and everything and work it into the original Lockdown's weapon holster hand, but that's what it looks like. So, Blazing Lockdown, is he worth it? Personally, I think he is, but that's because I really like Lockdown, and it helps that I bought this mostly for the chainsaw, like a lot of folks, and I was mistaken in doing so, because the chainsaw doesn't really fit in with original Lockdown all that well. But Blazing Lockdown surprised me in how much I enjoyed just the sheer ruthlessness of the scheme of this redeco, and it really worked for me. It worked for me hardcore. And I'm kind of glad I went for him. I thought he was going to be sort of forgettable, but while I was messing around with him, I really kind of fell for the bronzed Henriksen. So, would I recommend Blazing Lockdown? If you really like Lockdown, then this is a great addition to your Lockdown shelf, especially since a Lockdown shelf is becoming more and more possible with each passing line. If you don't really like redecos and you only want this for the chainsaw, you'll be disappointed. The chainsaw is by no means the entire reason to buy this guy. This guy delivers on a couple fronts, doesn't deliver on some other ones, and hopefully this review has helped you come to a decision about him. This has been Internet Personality Vangelus. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to continue the legends of Lockdown sometime in the near future.